homelands. These are our ancestral homelands. And it is so important for us to conserve, protect, and make sure that the balance is any more than it already has been. And I don't think most people realize like what will happen if the Everglades is destroyed.
Welcome to Indigenous Earth Community Podcast, where we sit down with global Indigenous voices and hear how they're honoring the traditions of protecting the planet.
Hey, Cheyenne, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I first saw you at the Unity Conference in Orlando when you were using your platform of Miss Indian World to inspire and support the Native youth. And I had to tell you, you did an amazing job. Everyone around you was so energized by your presence and all the conversations you had. It was just amazing to see how of an inspiration you are for the youth.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that a lot, and I think, Miss Indian World definitely was a great opportunity to kind of bring those things to life and like channel it in the right way. But, it really has shown me that I just love what I do. I love public speaking. I love connecting with our people. And, it was so important to me to utilize the platform to the best extent, you know what I mean? And so whether it's talking about cultural preservation, land preservation, inspiring our youth, whatever it is, like I'm just ready to do it all. And Unity is such a special place too. Oh, thank you. And it's been such a beautiful journey, and it's connected me with so many incredible people just like you. And, it's awesome, the opportunities that have come out of it, the conversations that have happened as well. And, that makes me even more excited for today and what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thank you again for being here. And, you mentioned that you're a Miss Indian World, culture icon, goodwill ambassador, and also someone who also speaks the importance of mental health and so much more. Your bio is like pages and pages, But words, like, can you tell me, like, who are you, where you come from, and where you're going?
Absolutely. So I think to do that, the most important thing I have to do would be introduce myself, the same way I would introduce myself to anybody. So I'm going to start off with introducing myself in my native language, Eleponge. And so, Chahochefke, Cheyenne Kippenberger, Deshe, Chahochefke Itotom, Anyatate Kuatotum, Seminole Kotomle. And so what I just said is, hi, everybody. My English name is Cheyenne. My given name is Ite, which actually translates to fire in English. It's kind of a joke with my grandmother. I am a Seminole Tribe member. I live here in Hollywood, and my family is of the Panther Clan. But aside from being Seminole, I am part Chilena. My mom was born and raised in Chile, and so I've been given such a blessed life to be able to have both sides of my family raise me. And so I do know just a little bit of Spanish, and I'd be trying to speak it here and there. But yes, I mean, as Miss Indian World, which, by the way, was something that was not exactly part of my plan for myself. I never anticipated for this to happen, but it has ended up being one of the most incredible and highest honors I've been able to hold in my short 25 years of life. And I really can't imagine like what things would be like without having pageantry in my life. And so I guess to know where I am right now, you have to know where I came from. And so I was born and raised in Hollywood. Like I said, I still live here today, and I was raised with both sides of me. So my Chilena side as well as my Seminole side. And both of my parents and both sides of my family were very, very big on, raising us with those cultural values, with the sense of community and knowing where we're from, where we are, and our role and our purpose in the world. And so the connection that I feel with where I am, as well as when I visit other people's lands, other people's homes, it goes a lot deeper. And I'm always wanting to understand the history behind those things, and, how different regions and different lands, your partners with where you're from. That's kind of how it's a relationship that you have. And so it's interesting to learn about the relationships that people have with their homelands. And so, but yes, I mean, so before Miss Indian World, I really struggled with my mental health. I was really struggling with my education, especially in high school. And I actually ended up dropping out for a little bit. And I was just very, very lost. And I was really trying to find myself. And I found myself working a full-time job, and I just needed direction. And so I was encouraged to go back, and I did end up finishing high school. I graduated about 2 years late. And I decided ultimately to just try college and see what would happen. And it was very, very difficult. It took me longer than probably the average person to finish it, but I did. And for some reason, after I graduated with my associates, I walked the stage. I still have this very empty feeling, and I wasn't very happy with myself, and I really didn't understand who I was or what I was supposed to do. And, I'm a very firm believer that all of us have a purpose in each lifetime that we live. And, whether it's being a mother, whether it's being a language teacher, if it's advocating for the land, if it's, being anybody really, we all have a job, like a purpose, a path that we're supposed to take. And I just didn't know what mine was. And so trying to get myself out of this comfort zone that I was in, I decided to run for Miss Florida Seminole for my own tribe. And it was the most beautiful experience. And I actually ended up getting crowned as Miss Florida Seminole. And that kind of set myself on this path of learning about myself, learning about what it was that I wanted to be, the woman that I wanted to be. And, probably about 9-10 months later, I found myself with the guts to finally run for Miss Indian World. And I guess I made a good decision because we're here. But I really take pride in being very honest and very transparent about my experiences in my life, and whether that's mental health or education or identity as well. Being multicultural was something that I really had to come to terms with, and, being confident and being okay with just who I was. And then I definitely tried to put that in to what it is that I want the world to see from their Miss Indian World, is just being proud, feeling beautiful no matter what, being confident, and being honest about the ups and downs of life, but also, just seeing that there's no one way to be an Indigenous person. We're modern people. We're not these old pictures that we always see in textbooks or on Google. We're modern living people. And whether we're in the city, whether we're on the res, whether we're, on the front lines, whether we're teachers, we're still who we are. And so, and I guess as far as where I see myself going, I definitely want to my education, and being able to serve in these different ambassador positions has really given me a different perspective on the world and what it is that I want to contribute to it. And I realize a lot of what I do as Miss Indian World is considered public health. And so the goal is to go and get my next degree in public health. And I hope to bring it home to my people and maybe address some of these issues that is so common in a lot of our communities.
That is amazing. That's such a journey. And I feel like sometimes it takes a little bit of us to figure out like who we are. And in a sense, it's like we are the person that we always been. It's just kind of accepting, our journey, and kind of be like, okay, maybe I was bullied as a kid because they were, teasing me about this aspect of my life. And then you embrace that, and then you become whole, and then you're able to give back. So I kind of feel like I had something like a similar journey too. So I'm appreciated that you came out on the end. And this platform you have, the Miss Indian World, has taken you all over, traveling. But where would you say that home is for you?
Oh, home is definitely right here where I am. I feel like as many places as I've traveled to, even before Miss Indian World, I've been to different countries. I've experienced different climates and environments. I've been all over the United States with the crown. And yeah, like nothing just compares to my little city of Hollywood. I laugh all the time because people ask me to describe it, and I think they expect this kind of extraordinary answer that would be different to anything that they've probably seen in their life. But it is like a very standard kind of city life. I mean, I have McDonald's here and IHOP and all these things. And what's unique about it is that our tribe, the Seminole Tribe of Florida, we have 6 different reservations. And as opposed to one large reservation that tends to be a lot more typical, our 6 reservations are all spread apart. And we have our Brighton reservation, which is also like very out west, and it's very remote and, a lot more in the forest kind of area of Florida. And then our Big Cypress reservation is more located towards the glades. And Hollywood, is our city reservation. We're right smack in between Fort Lauderdale and Miami. And so it's very urban, very modern. But, it's home. And it's funny because we look at our community and we have the smallest reservation, yet it's the most populated. And I couldn't imagine waking up and like not seeing the same cars every day, or like knowing that I know where everybody lives in my community. And, my sisters are up the road from me, and my dad's right there. My grandma's here, my aunt's right there. And, yeah, they always say home is where the heart is. And I definitely am like a Hollywood girl at heart through and through. And it's funny because I always make the joke that no matter where I go, I kind of like leave a little bit of Hollywood there, or I bring the sun with me because we're from Florida. And, it's unlike any other thing I've ever seen in the world. Nothing really compares to it. And it has its own life, just being what it is. And it's neat to see where it's come from, because before it was Hollywood, it was Dania, and there was nothing really out here. It was very remote back then, and now it's very commercial and full of people, and it's like one of the worst traffic areas ever. But it's home, and I enjoy being able to share it with everybody and getting to share that different experience of being, I guess, from around the res, but also being from the city. And so, but yeah, it definitely is where my heart is. And I feel like no matter where I go, or no matter where I travel to, a little bit of me is always going to be here.
That's beautiful said. And, I'm so excited to be talking to you. I know we've been planning this for a long time. And I'm just, also excited to be sharing Florida with someone because, Florida is amazing. I love it. I know some people are down on Florida, but I think it's an amazing place. And I know down south, now that it's cold, there's the fallen iguanas, right? I was telling to a coworker about it when it gets too cold. They have the weather report where it says, we're going to have fallen iguanas. Like, where else in the world you're going to have that on the news,
I don't think people take it as literal how they say it, but that's literally what happened. The iguanas literally freeze, and then they're just falling like out of trees. They'll be driving and just see one like plop down, and you're like, but to me, I'm like, oh man, like I hope nobody runs it over, worst case scenario. But I laugh at the house we grew up in when we were, still kids. We had this big oak tree in the back, and we were doing the yard one day with my dad. And I remember I seen him just standing, he was doing the weed eating, and something fell on him. Oh, and we all started freaking out because we didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And it was an iguana. It was an iguana that fell right on his head. And we're like, what do we do? Do we try to thaw it out? Like, we didn't know what to do. And so we put him in the garage. And I remember we had kind of caged it in this little area. And we actually never found him. We went back to find him, and he was gone. So he's probably still in that garage to this day. But if they're frozen, just leave them.
Yeah, that's so funny. See, this is proof. I told my coworker that this happened in Florida. He didn't believe me. So now we have proof that we do have fallen iguanas in Florida. And it's just like a popsicle that falls on you and then, moves away. But following about iguanas, let's talk about the bigger lizard, the alligator. I do a lot of kayak cleanups in Florida. We take the trash out of the water. And number one question, do you see alligators? Yes. Florida, you're going to have alligators everywhere. And I saw recently that you posted on your Instagram, by the way, one of the best Instagram accounts that there is. I'm definitely
Oh, thanks.
I'm going to put your handle on the show description so people can follow you. But you posted something really interesting about the history of alligator wrestling. I thought it was so cool. Living in Florida here, of course, sometimes you have to jump on top of the alligator to kind of take it out of your garage. But tell me about that. I don't know if you want to kind of share a little bit more about that post you made about the history of the alligator wrestling.
Yes. So, as Seminoles, we have a really, really unique history because not only do we still live in unceded territory, which means that we live on our ancestral lands. This is where our people were pre-colonization, and we are still proudly here today. And for that, we are the unconquered Seminole Tribe of Florida. But also what's unique is, and I love sharing this about the Everglades and where we're from, because the same way that, we have a job really to protect the Everglades and its whole, it protected us as well. And so our relationship with the wildlife is also very unique. And alligators specifically, was something that, I look at them as they're beings. They're not just animals. We're in that relationship is so much deeper than just, there's an alligator in my pool and we need to get it out. And, sometimes unfortunately it ends up with the gators being put down. And that's something that we're not taught. We're taught to protect them and to maintain that balance, that relationship. And so, being here from the Everglades, that relationship outdates probably most relationships that people know. And that started off with more being a survival tactic. And so what you'll see in modern alligator wrestling are these different moves and styles, but these were survival tactics that our people had to come up with and eventually found and adapt to. And so when we were being pushed more towards the glades, which is more towards west of Florida, we had to survive. And what we were doing was learning the land, and alligators was one of those things. And so whether it was for hunting or for just relocating them, we started developing these skills. And so even bulldogging was something that our people came up with historically. And that's when they put the gator's nose right under the chin and they hold it.
They hold it, yeah.
Yeah, and they hold it. And it's neat because it's something that's so it's a wow factor in these different wrestling shows, but it's something that I've seen my uncles do. So it's always really funny to talk about it. But it's, I guess, to go deeper into it, it was survival. That's what our people were going through. And so like I said, whether if it was relocating or if it was the actual meat that we needed, since it's so humid here, meat goes bad very, very fast. And obviously it's not like they had refrigerators back then. And so they have to bring the gators back to the camp alive in order to, prolong that, I guess, just how long it would be in between actually butchering it and then being able to eat it. And so sometimes these men would have to go out by themselves and go get gators. And so that's where bulldogging came from. They would have to hold it. They'd have to get the rope and tie their mouth shut. And yeah, that's what our men did. And so eventually when we started making contact with the settlers that were here in Florida, we were having to adapt also with the times, and we had to, find a way to feed our families and support our families. And tourism started to become very, very big. And so we started opening these Indian camps where they would give alligator wrestling shows. And we pretty much created, our own arenas and our own shows. And that was, one of the first ways that we were financially supporting our tribe, really. And so even to this day, we have our camps, we have our villages that are open to tourists. Unfortunately, not now because of COVID, but today you can still come out here and see authentic Seminole or Miccosukee alligator wrestling. And, and there's so much to learn about it, about balance, about relationships. And, the same way that we, look at the land or look at the flowers or anything, alligators still hold an importance to this ecosystem and to the environment itself. And it's so important to remember that they're not just wild animals, they're beings, and we should respect them the same way that we would respect, our neighbors or, someone random that we see at a supermarket. And these are the same teachings and same beliefs that we still hold today. And so, and they're not kidding when they say alligators are everywhere. Even if you're in the city, you can wake up one day and if you live near a lake, you can have a gator in your backyard or in your pool. And so, it's being respectful and remembering that these gators were here long, long before most of us were. And sometimes they're even older than we are. And so it's just important to be respectful and remember that, there's a relationship that always needs to be maintained is the best way, I think, to put it.
Yeah, thank you so much for really giving us the history of the alligator wrestling and so much information. And, something that you kind of mentioned kind of hit a nerve with me in the sense that when you say that the alligators are beings, and I never really stopped to think about it, but it's true. When you are around an alligator, you feel a presence of something there that is I guess that the easiest way to explain is when you're looking at a dog, you see the dog, but the dog has a little bit of presence there. There's that intelligence behind those eyes that you kind of feel like this animal, in a way, it is closer to what a human is than other animals. And the alligator has that. I never thought to think about that, but you're right. It's you feel the presence of that I don't know how to describe it, but it is a good point that you have to treat them, like we would treat people. And you kind of mentioned a little bit about the everglades and the importance of this. Can you tell us a little more about why is it important? I know that is a big biodiversity place here in Florida. What else the Everglades does for us?
I guess if you want to get more into the science side of the Everglades, it's the heart of Florida. And if you look at any wetlands, whether it's here in Florida or even Louisiana, these wetlands serve such a huge purpose in our ecosystems and in the balance of those ecosystems. And so these wetlands, they're kind of like the kidneys of world. They clean all the water that flows through it. And you mentioned biodiversity. I mean, if you look at any area of the world that has the wetlands like the Everglades, it's home to some of the most diverse beings everywhere. And so it's, whether we want to talk about pollution or, preservation or just being respectful of the lands itself, the Everglades is absolutely beautiful. It's such a beautiful place. And, I always have to remind myself that most people don't get to grow up living in between the beach and the glades. And so we get a mix of everything out here. But, the purpose of the Everglades was, I think, so much deeper than anything we will really ever understand as people. The Everglades, the same as as alligators or, all of these animals that have always been here predates us as humans. And, unfortunately, we've seen so much of, what commercialization does, industrialization does, the draining of the swamps. And, yes, it's been made possible that people can live here now, but there's been a large disruption in the balance that used to be here. And we're still seeing it today. There's still fights going on to protect these waterways, to protect the glades, and to protect, all of the plant species, the animal species that live and thrive in this environment. And so, but the importance of, I think, culturally speaking, like I had mentioned before, long before, most of us were here, the Everglades protected my people. And, whether you're Indigenous or non-Indigenous, no matter where you're from, I think, take a moment to kind of think about your relationship with the land or where you're living. And no matter what region you're in, if it's the glades, if it's the plains, if it's, the mountains, whatever it is, these places, these ecosystems are all part of a much, much larger picture than sometimes we're able to see. And so sometimes I think it's very hard for people to think about the connection they may even hold with the land. And it's so hard to explain it. It really is, because these are things that we're just raised on, knowing respect and knowing that these lands are going to outdate our lives. And, if you really want to talk about the circle of life, it's like you're born, you live, and eventually the land takes you back. We all end up back in the land. And I really just try to encourage people to kind of take a moment and to think about what their relationship is with the land. And maybe if they don't necessarily feel it or understand it yet, it's okay to question it. That's a good starting point, is to question these things. And so, think about what these things serve and what these balances. You can work yourself into that balance as well.
I mean, that's one of the most beautiful things I ever heard. That was awesome. That was really well put.
Thanks.
I think it's just the modern life, man. It's just get us to day in, day out, and we're just focused on a little corner, a little house, and before it was housework, but nowadays a lot of us are just working from home. We don't even go outside, and we don't really feel the weather because we're indoors. We're sheltered. It's hot, we cranking up the AC. It's cold, we cranking up the heat, and it just has that disconnect with the outside world. And
absolutely. And it's so easy to get caught up in that. And I mean, even me as a young person, even, being, I guess, aware of some of these things that we're discussing, I even have to remind myself, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're, a bad person or anything like that, or like you don't care per se. It just happens. With modern living comes with living with AC, living with internet, especially now with being in this pandemic. We don't have that freedom to just go outside and do whatever it is that we want to do. But, if there's one thing my mom always encouraged me to do, is if there's grass around you, if there's land, sand, dirt, wherever it is that you may be from, my mom encouraged us to always go outside for just like 5-10 minutes a day and go walk on the floor barefoot, and not on the concrete. I mean, like in the grass, in the dirt, in the sand, the water, whatever it is that may be around you. Go outside and let your feet touch the ground, and that in a sense grounds you. And as a kid, I was like, Mom, like, no, I didn't understand it as a kid, but now I get it. I get what she means, and I think if anything with this pandemic, it has definitely amplified the understanding of like what it is to go outside and breathe fresh air, to be around trees, to see grass, to see the water, the ocean or lakes, whatever it is. I think people are finding this appreciation for it because we're stuck inside these concrete walls. And it's hard. It's definitely difficult. But, like I said, I still have to remind myself sometimes about it and, recenter myself, reground myself, go take that 5-minute walk barefoot, even if your neighbors look at you crazy, and just enjoy it. Enjoy the land that is around you and do what you can to contribute to that relationship, the same way that you would tend a relationship with your parents or your siblings or your partner. Tend that relationship with the land as well. Learn about it and ask all these questions, and don't be embarrassed about it either. It's okay. Sometimes, we're not raised in families that know about that. Sometimes we don't know about the landscapes around us, but that's okay. Just, go learn about it for yourself. And if it means creating the relationship and then tending to it and everything, I think those are some of the things that bring a beautiful type of fulfillment to us as individuals in the world. I really do.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We have to take care of those relationships that we have with nature. And I think all of us had that friend that we invite out and they make plans and they flake out, and they're like, oh man, and then like you invite them again and they flake out, and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna invite them again. They just flake out, But nature would always be there for you. It's like that childhood friend that you grew up with, that know you very well, that know your weakness, that knows your strength, that always will be there to reach out. And you're right. We have to make that call, right? Pick up the phone and call nature and connect with nature, because there's so much energy and love and distress that nature can give us. Just like you say, a couple minutes. There's studies, forest bathing, people that just go outside and just get a little bit of vitamin N, vitamin nature, as they call it. And what do you think that people can do to help to preserve the Everglades? Because this podcast here, people listen to all over the United States and in the world. What can we do at home to help preserve this Everglades?
I think one of the most important things you can do is amplify Indigenous voices that have already been doing this for a very long time. I know that there's many organizations and advocates and individuals that have done a lot of work in regards to preservation and protection for the Everglades, but I do think it's extremely important to be giving the Indigenous voices that, like I said, have been doing this for a very long time. They deserve the seat at the table, and they should be able to speak over these issues and really have autonomy over these things. Our relationship with the land, our understanding of the land, our history with the land, these are things that only our people can hold. And so I think it's extremely important that our people really have a say-so in regards to policy, protection, and how we can accomplish these things as people. And I guess moving forward and being like a good ally in that way, use your voice, use the grounds that you have. Your abilities are not as limited as you may think. Sending an email is something that goes a very far way. Making a phone call can go a very far way. And with right now, what's going on is there's been a change in the permitting process of what's going on with the Everglades. And I purposely pulled this up so I could read it because I think I'm horrible at wording it. But let's see. Okay. So the U.S. government has currently turned over wetland permitting authority to the state of Florida, giving it control of Section 404 of the Federal Clean Water Act. And so what is going on is historically the EPA, as well as the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, were the groups that were overlooking the development of the wetlands. But now the state has that control, and they will be supervising dredge and fill permits. And this was something that neither the Miccosukee tribe or the Seminole tribe ever signed off on. This was just something that was done. And there are advocates, there are many organizations that are trying to fight this right now. And so, and there's many accounts that you can follow. I would be happy to share a list of those accounts for like Instagram or even just websites that people could look at. But what these organizers are asking is if there's an email that you can send, and you could also contact the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Commissioner, Nikki Fried, and I can provide that email as well as that call. And I think the worry that a lot of us have is that, it's just the natives that care, that it's just like, because mind you, there's only 600 members within the Miccosukee tribe. And, if you think about that 600 versus like the thousands, hundreds of thousands and millions of people that live here in Florida, I think that there's an assumption that most people just don't care. And the reality is most people actually don't even know what goes on with these things. It's very hush hush. And so I think it's so important that, even if you're non-native, like use your voice and amplify the native voices that have been doing this. And, send that email, send an email every single day, actually. And let's flood their emails. Let's flood their call lines. Like, let's let these people know that we care about our wetlands. We care about the Everglades. We care about what happens. We care about autonomy. We care about sovereignty. about protecting homelands. These are our ancestral homelands, and it is so important for us to conserve, protect, and make sure that the balance is any more than it already has been. And I don't think most people realize like what will happen if the Everglades is destroyed. We're talking about even the effects of climate change. If hurricanes, all of these things, the Everglades helps protect us in those natural disaster situations. It wasn't like, we just woke up one day and, these are things that have been happening for a long, long time. And like I said, it's very hush hush, but, with the beauty of what social media and the internet has brought is that we are able to inform people, and we are able to mobilize people, and we are able to educate and get everybody on the same page. And so your Miss Indian World is asking all of you to send that email, to call that number at least once a day, because we need to protect what's left, is the best way to put it. The Everglades was literally drained so that all of us could live here today, which is great. I know people love coming to Miami. They love Orlando. They love coming out here for vacation. Well, people live here. People live here every single day, and we want it to stay the way it has been. This is what we've been able to preserve and maintain up to this point, and we don't want to see any more of it get destroyed. And so I'm asking y'all to please help with this. You can send an email to 404assumption-fl@epa.gov, and you can just express your concerns and let them know that you do not agree with the decision to give the state of Florida control of Section 404 of the Federal Clean Water Act. Or you could give a call, or just kidding, you can send an email to Nikki Fried also at NIKKI Nikki.Fried FRIED @fdacs.gov. Or you can give them a call at 850-617-7700. And again, express your concerns. Let them know that you do care, that you know what's going on, and you are going to keep calling every day until they stop or overturn it.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to put all the information on the show notes too. So if you want to go ahead and email or call, you'll be able to. And we have this conversation, in this podcast, and we always try to raise awareness about what's going on the planet, talking about Indigenous conservation heroes. But if this conversation just stays as a podcast, it doesn't really make an impact in the world. So this is where you come into part and follow, what we're asking to help the Everglades. And like Cheyenne said, if you come to Orlando one time or to Miami, you have to help preserve it. You have to help keep Mickey alive.
Exactly. I feel like, again, that's where the connection, the relationship that you may not understand with the land, this is where it comes in. If you come here and you enjoy these places, help us protect it, help us maintain it. Help us gain autonomy over it as Native peoples, and, be a part of that larger change that we would all like to see. And, I know that there's so many things going on in the world right now with the pandemic and, politics and climate change. But, as people, we have to sit here and question, what contribution have we made to this world? What contribution have we put towards these causes? And this is one of the ways that you can do that. And, I know that sometimes we have this notion that, an email is not going to make a difference. A phone call is not going to make a difference, but it does. There is power in people coming together. There is power in numbers. And this is where, social media, the internet, all of this stuff, Facebook comes together. They just had a prayer walk that they had where people from all over Florida and even the country came together to walk in prayer for the Everglades. And so there is other people that care about these things. And so let's amplify those voices. Let's give them an even larger platform. And, as an ally, there has to be a moment where you sit there and you got to pass the mic. Pass it to Indigenous people, pass it to people of color, and give us that chance to really speak for ourselves, to share our experiences, to share our ideas. And, I think a lot of beautiful things will come out of that. And so just remember that your small impact, as small as it may seem, it goes very, very far, and it contributes to a much larger impact.
Yes, together we can make a difference. And Cheyenne, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. Thank you for all your insight, your comments. It was so enjoyable talking to you. And I really think that a lot of people are going to be inspired by your words. I know that you inspire people. I've seen it before, when you go there and you talk and people get energized. And I know that people are going to be like listening to it. They're going to look at the email and they're going to send the email out to make a difference for the Everglades. So thank you so much once again.
No, thank you, Frank. I appreciate the opportunity. I love the conversation. I was so excited, when we were finally able to organize. And, I really appreciate the work that you have done. I really appreciate, your allyship, the respect that you've always shown. I know that you work with a lot of my friends back at Unity as well. They always speak so, so highly of you. And so I'm incredibly honored to have done this with you. And of course, I'd like to extend, any type of help, guidance, and vice versa. You know what I mean? I just want you to know that I've created a new friendship here, and I'm thankful for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.